we need to be more vocal. We need to say something, and we just can't keep giving allegiance to individuals who constantly keep taking advantage of our vote and keep taking advantage of our community. So the tension that we're experiencing in Chicago, from my point of view, is a good thing, because it's going to cause individuals to finally become more aware and more involved in changing things. And I think that's a great thing.
Hello, everybody. This is Glenn Loury. You've tuned in to The Glenn Show. I'm with Pastor Corey Brooks of the New Beginnings Church in Chicago. And he is the CEO of Project Hood, HOOD, helping others obtain destiny, which is, I gather, an extension of his ministry in Chicago. And we're here to talk about what's going on in the hood, so to speak, and how it relates to what's going on in the newspapers and magazines about DEI, race, and inequality in America. So thanks very much, Pastor Brooks, for joining me.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be on, and thank you for allowing me to speak on your platform. It's a tremendous blessing. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my honor, to be honest with you. I've heard about your work from Robert Woodson and from Eli Steele and Shelby Steele. And just from following what's going on in Chicago day to day. That's my hometown. I haven't lived there since the late 1970s, but that's my hometown. I still care, you know.
Absolutely. This is your neighborhood too, right? Woodlawn?
Well, I didn't actually live in Woodlawn. I lived in Park Manor when I was growing up as a kid, but it's not very far. Not at all far.
Yeah, it's all Park Manor is actually that's the King Drive area now, but they no longer call it this part of Park Manor. So it's still all the same.
Yeah. Let me just say, I'm Glenn Loury. I teach at Brown University. I'm a professor of economics, and I'm also a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute. And I want you to know that the Manhattan Institute sponsors the Glenn Show. So I was stunned by that piece that you had in Tablet magazine. Let me just pull up my notes here. America works, DEI doesn't. Dedicated leader of community transformation, Pastor Corey Brooks holds forth. DEI advocates are exploiting the pain of my community to gaslight their opponents, and this troubled me the most because it hurts and hinders our efforts to truly make lasting progress. That is a quote from your piece. You published the piece in the aftermath of the controversy, the brouhaha over President Claudine Gay of Harvard University being forced out. And I'm just wondering, you know, what induced you to want to weigh in on that one at that particular moment?
Well, it was not only that issue, which had been brought to the forefront, and it was on everybody's mind. Everybody was discussing it. It was also some Twitter things going back and forth between Elon Musk and Mark Cuban.
I don't know about this.
Yeah, so after reading Mark Cuban's views on his affirmative belief in DEI, I decided, I wanted to chime in. And so after chiming in, then I decided to also talk about the situation at Harvard as well, because it all related, it all tied together for me.
Tell me how.
Well, the fact that, you keep having these individuals who believe that somehow that Black folk need their help in order to advance in society. And they keep having these liberal views, and they keep putting these ideas and concepts together that I believe are detrimental to everything that we're trying to do as a society and as a culture. Specifically, those individuals who find themselves at the lower end of the spectrum in society, in our community. DEI doesn't help them at all, but it does help those individuals who keep putting forth these beliefs and empowering themselves and enriching themselves to promote these type of beliefs. But at the end of the day, it does not help, especially the type of young men that we're trying to help on the south side of Chicago.
You talk about one of them in the article. I believe his name is Jonathan Watkins. The story is very powerful. He lost his baby girl in a I gathered what was a drive-by shooting. He was tempted to get revenge and whatnot. He disappeared on you for a while and came back home.
Yeah.
Talked very powerfully about what really matters to his life and what doesn't. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that somehow people believe that, individuals who find themselves on the fringes of society, trying to get out of gang life, that somehow American values will not help them, or that they believe that these individuals don't believe in American values when they do. Lots of times, individuals like Jonathan, they understand that the only way they're going to get out of their situation is not by continuing to blame someone for their situation, but they got to take responsibility and become accountable. And when they start to focus on work, they start to focus on themselves and dealing with their inner problems and issues, and start to really focus on becoming better family men, things start to change for them, and they see this. So in Jonathan's case, it was a long process, and it still is a process. But the good news is he's come a long way, and he did not do that with the help of DEI. He did not do that with the belief of saying white supremacy is my issue and my problem. He did that with an organization that was coming alongside to assist him to understand that, look, you have to be accountable for your actions. You have to start working. You have to start being responsible. You have to learn how to read. You have to take care of your family. And those are the type of things that I believe, and that now he believes, that helps individuals to get ahead.
I'm just looking at my notes here, and I have another quote from the piece that I want to share with the audience. DEI ideology didn't offer Jonathan a better life. It has no ability to help him. It doesn't offer faith. It doesn't offer meaningful work. It doesn't live with us on the south side of Chicago. It's manipulative rhetoric, a way of exploiting Jonathan's tragedy and the tragedy of thousands of young men like him on behalf of professional class ideologues who seek to use our pain to fuel their rise through American institutions. Their stock in trade is a soul-destroying poison whose moral and real-world effects are as negative for our community as those of any other drug that is sold here. My God. Now, I'm not a pastor, but that sounds like a prophetic voice to me. I got to tell you that, brother.
Well, yeah, I thank God for the gift, and I thank God for the opportunity to say it in such a way that people can understand it. The fact that we have so many Black liberal elites who are using the suffering and pain of their own people to promote their own agendas and to move themselves ahead in society, it is disheartening. But we see it every single day. And it's amazing that these Black elites, these liberals, they go to the same people that they claim are hindering us in order to ask them to advance us. And so I wanted to make that known, and I wanted to say it in such a way that would be heartfelt and that people would realize that something drastically needs to happen differently than a focus on DEI.
Tell me about New Beginnings.
So New Beginnings is a place where we're trying to give people a fresh start. We're right in the heart of the south side of Chicago, 66 and King Drive. In 2014, the Chicago Sun-Times wrote that this was the most dangerous block in all of Chicago. And so being a pastor on this block, we decided we wanted to do something about that. So our church, the name itself, is all about helping individuals to get a fresh start, a brand new beginning. And we really focus on individuals who are in the fringes. So we go after the Jonathans of the world. We go after individuals who have been left behind or who find themselves disenfranchised because of their own beliefs system. And we try to help them to change that belief system, that mindset, so that they can begin to understand that they can achieve and accomplish anything if they put their heart and their mind, their spirit to it, and especially if they have a church that comes alongside and assists them. So we totally try to tear down the mindset that says that we can't make it because of the white man. We totally try to get rid of all those type of concepts. And we just really focus on trying to help people to move ahead in life and move their families ahead. So that's what our church is really all about.
Now, you're there in Chicago, which just elected an African-American mayor, Brandon Johnson, who is a progressive and supposed to be a part of the solution to the problem. I'm not asking you to do anything you don't want to do in terms of political endorsement. I'm just wondering what you think.
I think he's doing a horrible job. It's very unfortunate. But the fact of the matter is that his approval rating is in the 20s, lower 20s, matter of fact. And, he's shown so far that progressive ideology is only going to continue to send Chicago downward. We're already experiencing lots of issues. Now, the present day issue that we're contending with is the immigration stuff that's going on, and we're spending millions upon millions of dollars. And his way of handling that is not only a problem for me, but it's a problem for most Black folk on the Chicago South Side and West Side. And so I think, I'm not the only one who believes that he's not doing a good job. The community is speaking out every single day.
Is there opposition to Chicago's status as a sanctuary city, self-declared status emerging in the Black community there?
Oh, for sure. If they were to have a vote today, there's no doubt in my mind that if we were able to vote on, do we want to continue Chicago as a sanctuary city, that policy would be overturned, and it would be led by a lot of Black people who are really upset about the fact that our communities close schools and things of that sort are now being used as homes for immigrants, and that's not to say that Black people are not compassionate. We are. We're very concerned about all people, but we also realize when a community is being totally taken advantage of, and it's something that I've been talking about for years now. And I think people are finally waking up that they can't continue to give all of their focus and all of their attention to one party and expect for them to continue to look out for them. And so we see on the south side of Chicago, on the west side of Chicago, people are finally, I believe, waking up to the fact that what the Democrats are doing in our community is totally not acceptable.
Let me ask you this. You're a Christian minister. Doesn't the imperative of charity and opening the door to the stranger and whatnot weigh in here to some degree in favor of sanctuary and support for migrants? And how do you square that, theologically?
Yeah, so thank you. That's a great question. I wrestle with it all the time. And we do have an obligation to help those who are in need. We do have an obligation to be a blessing to all people. But we also have an obligation to take care of our families and take care of individuals who are in this community. And so it becomes very difficult and it becomes very stressful and strenuous to do both. And I think the reason why people like myself and others are so upset is not because we don't want to help migrants. It's not that's not the case at all. It's because they're putting such a strain on us to be able to impact the people who are already presently here. And so it's not that we don't want to help. We would love to help. It's just that we're being put in a position where it's being basically impossible because there are so many individuals. And then when you add the fact that so much of our taxpayers' funds are going toward these efforts, it's unheard of. For instance, in Chicago, they just signed a contract of up to $57 million for a restaurant or a catering service to cater meals for the migrants. So, when you have things like that and then you require citizens in Chicago to have to fund it, that becomes really tough.
Are the African American representatives in the city council and the state legislature in Illinois and in Chicago responsive to the kind of concerns that you're talking about? Do they have a voice in the larger political conversation about this issue?
Right. There is a big fight going on in City Hall right now, being led by Alderman Bill, who is in the Roseland area, the hundreds. And I just watched a clip of him recently where he was saying that um, the migrants coming to Chicago are not going to stop. And then he says, quote, especially when meals are given, free education is given, and $9,000 housing vouchers are being given, it's not going to stop. They're going to continue to be pouring in. And then he said, and if I were in their position, I would too. And so he says that in order for this to change, that policy has to change. And so there are individuals within city government who are seeing that the policy just isn't working.
Okay. So Brandon Johnson's in trouble by your calculation. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I think he's in trouble. I think that unless he can do something drastic to turn around, that there will be a lot of individuals who will be running for his seat in the next go around. I think the fact that the unions, the education, the school system supports him overwhelmingly is his only saving grace. But from a city perspective, it doesn't look good at all.
Yeah, he has a background as a organizer for the Chicago Teachers Union, which must have many middle-class African-American members in its body.
For sure.
I'm fascinated by this tension within the Black community of views about these controversial issues, and I'm wondering how that gets sorted out. For example, within the ministerial community of pastors with congregations around the city, do you find that you have a lot of support for your way of looking at things?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for the pastors to not think any differently on this issue when their congregants are saying, hey, we need you to speak out. We need you to say something. And I tell you, for the first time in a long time in Chicago, I really feel like this tension is good because it's finally allowing people from our community to look at the system and say, hey, this system isn't being fair to us. And so we need to be more vocal. We need to say something. And we just can't keep giving allegiance to individuals who constantly keep taking advantage of our vote and keep taking advantage of our community. So the tension that we're experiencing in Chicago, from my point of view, is a good thing because it's going to cause individuals to finally become more aware and more involved in changing things. And I think that's a great thing.
What about the cops?
Well, you speak of tension, so Chicago is a great place to have that tension. We're working hard on our end to make sure that, I'm a conservative, so I believe in having strong police departments. I would not want to live in a community on the south side or west side or anywhere else, up north, anywhere, without the presence of a strong police department. However, with that being said, in Chicago, our police department is very hindered. They're very handicapped in the work that they can do because everything that they do is being looked at, it's being scrutinized to the highest degree. And a lot of individuals have basically taken a step backwards. And because of that, we see crime, we see um, young people downtown acting in ways that we would never see before. Just on a couple of days ago, coming out of a school downtown, a young man was shot and killed in broad daylight. So that's the type of stuff we're seeing because we're not allowing, I believe, in my opinion, the police to do the police work that needs to be done in the city of Chicago.
Wow. Laquan McDonald.
Yeah.
I mean, a young man who was brutalized, a police officer, I don't remember his name, ended up going to prison about it. And that was supposed to be symptomatic of a generic problem within the Chicago Police Department. Black Lives Matter. I don't suppose they come to your church for services on Sunday.
No, Black Lives Matter does not come to my church, and you know, they would be welcome, but their points of views would not be welcome. You know, a lot of times with DEI, Black Lives Matter, all of these things, this woke mindset, all of these things are being promoted and pushed, and this agenda that's being pushed by liberals and elites. But at the end of the day, they're not helping our community. You know, Black Lives Matter received millions of dollars. And even when they were receiving those millions of dollars, I said at the very beginning, I wrote an article about it, that, you know, that was not a good thing to do. And now we're finding out how money was being misused, and we're finding out that grassroots organizations did not get help, even though they were tied to Black Lives Matter. And it was all a push of a certain agenda, a certain ideology, a certain mindset. And it's the same type of thing that we're seeing with DEI and this whole woke concept. And that's what we're experiencing in urban areas all across America. And we have to be very careful. And I think it's important that voices like yours and voices like Eli Steels and Shelby Steele and Dr. Woodson, we continue to give those voices platforms so that our people can understand that there are alternative thoughts, and that there are people out there who think totally different than what's being the agenda that's being pushed.
Have you gotten much support from the business community in Chicago for the work that you're trying to do?
I do get some help. You know, Chicago is a very liberal city. So to be a conservative and then to be a Black conservative on the south side of Chicago and to be a preacher, you know, you're swimming upstream. And so we do have some businesses, though, who have been a tremendous blessing to us. We have quite a few businessmen who are on our advisory board who have come alongside to assist us and educate us on the process of being a great non-for-profit organization. So on one hand, we've been very blessed, but on the other hand, there's so much opportunity out there for individuals to come alongside who have not done that as yet. Most of our support, I tell people, we gained over 20,000 new supporters, 20,000 new donors in 1 year. And those donors all were from South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, California, Arizona, those communities.
20,000?
Yeah, 20,000 new donors. And they've helped us to do what we're doing now. And that's to build a 90,000 square foot center, $38 million. We've raised 31 million of those dollars. We're trying to do it debt free. And that center is going to be a fantastic place where we're going to be helping more people to understand American values and conservative values, and help them to transform and change their lives.
I'm very glad to hear it. They call you the Rooftop Pastor. Well, tell my audience what's that about. I love the story.
Yeah, so they call me the Rooftop Pastor because there was a motel across the street from our church that was drug infested, prostitution, a lot of stuff was going on that we needed to get rid of, and they wouldn't sell it to us. We tried everything. So finally, I felt led to go on top of the roof and refuse to come down until I had enough money to raise to pay to buy it and tear it down so we could start building a community center. So in 2011, going into 2012, I was on the roof of that motel for 94 days, and we finally raised enough money to purchase it and tear it down. Then 10 years later, we had the property, the building was gone, and we had this idea and this vision about building a fantastic economic and leadership center where we could help transform lives by teaching trades, teaching financial literacy, giving all the things that our community needs to transform it. But we didn't have any money to build it. So we put 8 train containers together, and I decided to do it again 10 years later on the 10th year anniversary. I went up on the roof again, and I ended up staying this time instead of 94 days. I ended up staying for 343 days, but it was a blessing. We raised over $25 million, And again, like I said, we got over 20,000 new donors. Fox gave me an opportunity to do a spot called Rooftop Revelations, and it was a tremendous blessing.
You're a conservative. You are a self-declared conservative. You get support from people in North Carolina and South Carolina, and I'll bet they're conservatives too. You just mentioned Fox and so on. So, I have to ask you how you respond to the criticism I could predict, which would be that they're using you.
Yeah.
Conservatism really does not have any answers for the Black community. It's all about money and property and capitalism and whatnot. And you're allowing yourself to be an instrument of political forces like the Trump campaign that are deleterious to the interests of Black people properly understood.
Right. And my answer to that is that that would be so far from the truth. One, I've been a conservative since I was 19 years old when I took my first political science class at Ball State University, Political Science 101. I realized that first week of school, man, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not liberal. I thought I was a Democrat. That's what I was always taught. And I realized then that, hey, I'm a conservative. And since that day, I've been promoting those type of values. And I believe those values work, whether you're Black or white, whether you're rich or poor, that the focus on capitalism, free markets, the focus on family, there are certain principles, the focus on education, the focus on taking responsibility for your life. I believe those principles work. And I've seen those principles not only work for me, but I see them working for individuals who are tied to the things that we're attempting to do. And, I also remind people, most Black people that I know and have known are conservative and come from conservative backgrounds. It's only the only difference is that even though we have conservative leanings and conservative points of view, they tend to vote for the Democratic Party. I believe that is totally starting to change as the party of the Democrats becomes more and more liberal and more progressive. And I believe Black people are starting to see that those values don't line up with the values that we've been taught from our ancestors over the years. And so that's my answer to that. So I believe I'm closer to what my granddaddy and grandmama used to believe than what these liberal teachings are.
I'm sitting here thinking about how we academics talk about these issues, about poverty in Black neighborhoods and violence, and about the family, out of wedlock births, and about structural racism and all that. But it's all kind of abstract. I mean, let me be specific. So I don't know, something like 7 in 10 babies born to a Black woman in America are born to a woman without a husband. And in the city of Chicago, I'm sure that number's got to be higher than that. How do you process that? What is that a spiritual problem? Is it a result of bad policy? What can be done at the level of individuals making decisions about how they live their lives to turn that around? It seems almost overwhelming to me sometimes when I think about it.
Yeah. At the, first from spiritually, being a pastor, I think everything first goes back to that it is a spiritual problem, that we've gotten so far away from God and we've gotten so far away from godly principles, and we continue to move further and further away, that it is causing issues. And these issues are not just happening for Black people now. The issue that you just spoke of, single parenthood is growing rapidly amongst all races. And so that's an issue that we have to contend with, and it's a spiritual issue. So we have to start there. But I also believe, too, that there are not just spiritual issues, but policies that come alongside at times to enhance and further people's morality to do wrong. And so there are some policies that we have to contend with in our neighborhood that are detrimental to people coming out of the lifestyle of poverty and families being together. So there are certain values that we have to keep pushing. But at the end of the day, it is a spiritual issue.
Tell me about Project Hood, helping others obtain destiny. I assume that's an extension of your ministry.
Yes. So we realized that we had all these problems, and we could either do like some say, the white man is causing all of our issues and white supremacy is the reason why the crime rate the way it is and people are killing each other and things are bad and people aren't being educated. Or we could say, listen, let's roll up our sleeves, let's put in the work, and let's fix these problems ourselves and stop waiting on Superman to come in to save the day because he's not coming. And so we decided to come up with an organization that is an outreach extension of our church called Project Hood. Hood stands for Helping Others Obtain Destiny. And we said, what are the 5 issues that we believe that are hindering people from moving out of poverty and keeping families broken? And so we said, we're going to focus on education, making sure that we help people get educated. So we have programs centered around financial literacy. We have programs centered around the trade. We have mentoring and tutoring. We also said economics. So we work hard to make sure that we teach entrepreneurship. We have a class getting ready to come up in 2 weeks for our 6th and 8th graders that is totally focused on entrepreneurship. And we realized that I think it's upward of 95% of Black companies don't hire anybody in Chicago. So now we're not only teaching entrepreneurship, we're teaching building capacity because we need to teach them how to build capacity. And so education, economics, social ills with all the things that we see with the gangs and with the family structures, we work on that. Economic, education, social ills, spiritual ills, we try to make sure that we push people back toward God, and then health and wellness. And so we really try to focus on those 5 things and to give people an opportunity to transform their lives. So we have classes with construction. We teach the trades. Just recently, we had a cohort where we're signing up people to take carpentry and construction. We only had 30 spots, but we had 350 people, 356 people to be exact, to apply for those 30 spots.
Wow.
That's why we're building a center so we can facilitate having more students to be able to teach. So those are the type of things that we're really focused on. And it's all focused around transformation. And it's all around this idea of turning this block that was called O Block, because it was named after a young man named O.D. Perry who was shot and killed. The gangs kept the O in his name. It's all about transforming that O Block, O.D. Perry, to Opportunity Block. And that's the reason why we came up with Project Hood. And that's the reason why we're building this center. And that's the reason why we're working hard to transform this neighborhood.
Yeah. Speaking of opportunity, I just want to quote one last thing from your piece in Tablet Magazine. Okay. That's why the recent decision of Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson to eliminate some of Chicago's top schools in the name of equity was so devastating to our communities. What equity means for these DEI folks is achieving parity with Blacks on the bottom instead of strengthening our ability to lift ourselves up. The framework of negative achievement that DEI offers is truly insulting. After 60 years of failing to end intergenerational poverty, intergenerational violence, and intergenerational illiteracy in my community, the DEI folks have decided to lower America down to our level right at the moment when we're trying to get out of it. And I have to tell you, when I read that, I almost jumped out of my chair. Because that is
articles.
Oh, I can't take credit for that. I cannot. Now, I assume, I'm not privy to what Mayor Johnson was thinking, but I assume it's that is an exam to get into the school and not enough Blacks are passing the exam to get into the school. So
yes.
I grant you that that's an issue. That's a problem that should concern us.
Yes.
But the solution to that problem is not to get rid of a school with exams. The solution to that problem is to minister to our people so that they are raised to the level of being able to meet that standard, it seems to me. And to not do that is to sell us short. That's what I've been saying for years. But to hear you say it warmed my heart.
Well, I got to be honest. I learned it from you, so between
Oh,
you and Shelby Steele and Dr. Woodson. I've been able to create a philosophy and an ideology that I think fits for where I am and what we're trying to do. But I would be remiss if I didn't let people know that I've learned a great deal from you, and I really appreciate it, and especially as relates to education and things like that, because I think you and we have a lot of the same views, and you're exactly right. The attempt to keep dumbing down standards so that we can somehow so that people somehow think that we need them to achieve and to accomplish, I think that is more of a problem than anything else. I think we got to constantly keep drilling into our young people. This is the standard. We got to get there. We got to give them the tools necessary. We got to give them everything that they need to achieve. But at no time do we need anyone to lower any standards for us so that we can somehow be accepted.
are there educators in Chicago, black, white, or otherwise, who have a similar philosophy, say in the charter school sector or whatever, that you are aware of, that you admire?
There are a large group of people who are starting to buy into the concept of charter schools, especially, or school choice. There's a big fight in Chicago, big fight in Illinois, where they just canceled funding for scholarships, and it's amazing that these same liberal Black brothers and sisters got rid of the scholarship that helped fund impoverished students to be able to go to the schools of their choice. But at the same time, their children get to go to these private schools, and they get to go to places that other impoverished kids don't get the opportunity to go to. But so with that being said, there are people who are becoming aware of this and fed up with it, and they're deciding that, hey, we need to do something about this. And so the tension that you talked about earlier is only creating an environment where people are really starting to look at these issues and not just take them for granted.
A thought occurs to me as we close here, which is the class differences of interest within the Black community are highlighted by your work and your witness. The people who have the megaphones, who write the op-eds, and who man the upper reaches of the Democratic Party on behalf of Black folks, don't have the same interests as people walking on the block worried about getting carjacked or worse, trying to get their kids educated, trying to find some decent place to work and to live. And that's just a very powerful theme. I wonder what you think about that.
It's a sad commentary that a lot of these individuals who say that they're speaking on the behalf of Black people do very little to assist and aid Black people who are impoverished to get to the next level in their lives. I tell them all the time, it's amazing that these same individuals who say they speak for us, we never see them. We never see them doing any work. We never see them rolling up their sleeves, but we see them with the megaphones. We see them writing the op-eds. We see them saying all the stuff, but their actions and their words are so far apart. And people realize it. People are not ignorant. People are starting to see the hypocrisy in the things that are being said compared to the things that are being done. But I choose to, instead of focus on them and focus on what's going on in our community, continue to roll up our sleeves and continue to make as much noise as I can and with as many good actions as I can, and let the changed lives be the testimony for what really works.
Sounds good to me. God bless you.
God bless you too.
My guest has been, you're welcome. You're welcome, Pastor Brooks. Pastor Corey Brooks, the Rooftop Pastor, New Beginnings Church. He's the founder and the pastor of the church, Project Hood, helping others obtain destiny, building a community center right across the street from the church. He's raised scores of millions of dollars to do it. He's going to change a lot of lives. And I really appreciate you giving me your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Now, when we get the center up, you got to come and do your show from the center at least one time.
Oh, you got it. That's a bet. I'm going to come on home to Chicago and do my show from new beginnings. I'm all for it, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.